自古以嚟，神秘事物不斷都衝擊住人類文明每一個角落，解釋唔到，卻又似有還冇嘅故事，永遠都引人入勝。究竟越嚟越多神秘現象嘅發生，代表住啲咩呢？今晚就等我哋一齊啟動神秘學研究檔案。OK， 歡迎收聽 MJ13， 我係你嘅節目主持Cheuk Fei，咁啊又有 Neil 喺度啦 ，Exopolitics 嘅 Neil Gould，welcome again.
Thank you very much.
You feel tired today?
I'm very tired, Cheuk Fei. Always very tired.
People get sick about this.
They should be grateful I get tired.
OK， 當你睇緊呢一集咧，如無嗱上個禮拜就停一集 MJ13啦，咁主要原因就因為我哋要準備去個旅程嗰啲嘢啦，咁所以如果而家你睇到呢一集 MJ13咧，就我哋其實應該就已經飛。We should be already in the States when the people look at
Sure,
this.
sure, yes, we should be, exactly.
It should be we are already in the States.
Absolutely.
OK， 我要同大家講講先啦，因為今季嘅原因好多奇怪嘅嘢發生啦，例如我又病咗啦，又病到就嚟死啦，跟住又搞咗個 tour 啦，咁中間亦都即係啲集數，所以今個季度咧嘅 MJ13啲集數咧好混亂嘅，即係我係原意係希望咗13集做晒，跟住就 season break 咁，但係睇情況而家咧就好似我哋中間原本諗住做晒個 season， 跟住咧就去個 tour， 咁然之後就 season break 咁樣嘅，咁但係而家睇嚟咧就好似個 tour 就夾咗喺個 season 中間啦，咁其實因為我仲有啲嘢想同大家分享，所以咧上個禮拜嗰集點解會停呢？就因為今個禮拜就即係做呢一集啊咁樣，咁所以好多混亂嘅時間，希望啲聽眾朋友唔好介意啊咁所以呢，我哋呢一集之後呢，我哋下個禮拜呢應該都會冇 MJ13嘅。咁但係呢，為咗補償翻呢樣嘢呢，其實呢一個禮拜開始呢，其實你會睇到喺個網站上高呢都會出翻嗰個 UFO tour 嘅一啲我自己拍緊嘅一個即係個 video blog 俾大家睇到 OK 今日發生過咩事大約啦，咁同埋即係睇翻所有朋友啊，咁俾大家去唔到嘅一齊同我哋分享翻個旅程嘅一啲有趣嘅嘢啦，咁所以變咗呢，今日呢一集 MJ13出咗之後呢，其實今晚開始都應該如無意外，今晚呢我哋都會有個 video blog， 或者如果冇就可能聽日啦，因為個時差問題，咁我要喺美國嗰邊就會夜晚就會剪翻嗰個 video blog， 跟住照樣 upload 上去個 server 度，咁大家都可以應該如無意外就連續咁多日啦，我唔喺香港咁多日咧都可以睇到晒成個過程啦。咁當然即係去完個 tour 之後，我仲會落喺 LA 幾日去做一啲另外一啲嘅嘢，咁然之後我先會翻嚟香港。咁所以咧呢度講埋都唔怕啦嚇，咁啊即係你今日睇緊呢一集就冇我，即係我唔喺香港嘅。咁但係咧即係下個禮拜嘅節目咧，下個禮拜冇 MJ， 但係點解咧？我應該禮拜一就會翻嚟。咁禮拜二晚嘅妖言惑眾咧，我就會真係親身上去就講翻個 tour 嘅嘢啦。咁所以變咗兩個節目都唔好錯過啦。咁今日有 Neil 喺度啦。咁啊上次咧，我哋上幾集啦嚇，咁啊出咗有個叫 Nordics 嘅外星人嘅 interview report。咁啊反應就即係熱烈啦嚇，即係相當熱烈嘅。我覺得個反應亦都有好多朋友都有即係俾佢啲意見啊，問過一啲問題啊咁所以咧變咗喺度咧，我就好想阿 Neil 咧，首先用少少時間去講一講我哋即係答咗啲問題先啦，咁同埋跟住落嚟咧就係大家等咗好耐咧，就係一份咩咧？呢一份上次嗰份係叫 Nordics 嘅 report， 今次呢一份咧就係 Grace 嘅 report 啊，即係啲小灰人嘅 interview 嘅報告，咁而家喺手嘅，咁所以我哋今日咧就會講呢個啦，咁睇下盡量講到幾多講幾多啦。咁就 Why don't we answer some of the questions from the forum, from the Facebook forum?
We can.
Yeah. Okay. On the forum that I speak in Cantonese. Then you know 喺個 forum 入邊咧，咁其中有一位咧，有一位朋友啦嚇，有一位朋友佢都係一位即係我去形容佢就係一位精神科嘅一位醫生啦。咁我叫佢咧，我叫佢做 Dr. Joe Lam。咁啊 Joe Lam 就有份即係問過一個問題，我覺得個問題幾 OK 嘅。咁佢個問題就係問關於呢個即係睇咗我哋個報告啦，咁啊發覺我哋有啲即係提議嘅資料咧，其實都係好容易跌入咗喺一個叫做控制嘅角度去睇嘅，即係話如果我哋需要去到一個外星嘅聯盟嘅時候，同一個宇宙嘅聯邦呢個 Galactic Federation 有一個聯合嘅時候咧，咁其實我哋個心態係咪應該要 change 咗，唔好俾一啲嘢豁限咗我哋咧？但係點解我哋又要跟住一啲嘅 rules 去做？會唔會係我哋離開咗呢一個 rules 就跌入去另外一個 rules 裏邊咧 ？Would you like to answer that kind of question?
Okay, the question from my understanding was at the time, Joe Lam was asking why would somebody voluntarily join a federation, because he referred to the situation on Earth where you're a member of the planet, it's institutions and you're controlled. Why would anybody voluntarily want to join the Galactic Federation?
It means someone why they have to leave this control and join the other control.
Right. Why would we want to go into the Galactic Federation? Well, first of all, thank you, Joe. I mean, Joe is a psychologist, and I think this is what we need, these kind of smart people who are expanding the thinking, the platform of thinking of humanity. Let me put it to Joe this way. There is a discipline which we call exo-consciousness, which is not taught in university. In fact, exo-consciousness is taught by somebody called Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle in the States. And in fact, as I mentioned to you before, we'll be setting up this platform, learnalt.com, which will address exo-consciousness and also address CE5s, how to contact ET, which we can talk about later on. So, first of all, one has to understand joining the Federation, it's not that you just want to join the Federation. You'd have to be able to think, to comprehend, to understand, to process information in the same ways as extraterrestrials process information. Now, here on Earth, we were talking about this anthropocentrism last time, where we judge everything from our own point of view. What people don't understand in the street is everything that we think, everything that we do, everything that we work for, every aspect, second of our life is based on the fact that we are controlled by a group of elites. Everything is controlled. You wake up in the morning to go to work, you work because you've got to pay electric bills, everything is money, 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 money. Even your religion, it's all based on control. So yes, he's right, we are stuck in this control situation. And it's terrible. And you're thinking, well, why would you move out of the frying pan and into the fire? That is the core and a very, very good point that Dr. Joe Lam is talking about. Now, what we have to come to terms with is a new word now, ethnocentrism. That means
say that again.
Ethnocentrism. Trying to judge other races based on the information that we have about our own race. We have to take our own race and everything we know about our own race, why we do this, why we do that, and put it to one side, Dr. Joe, because we're talking about advanced species out there. Not all are positive necessarily towards us or have us our goodwill in mind. But we have to take everything we know about how humans kill each other, how we are controlled by religion, how we have to pray, how we can't do this, how we have to spend money on energy and everything is kept short and they poison your water. Take all that to one side because this may have nothing to do with anything in the Galactic Federation, because this is a federation of advanced spacefaring sentient life forms. Okay, you have the Galactic Federation membership and you have those groups that are not in the Galactic Federation. And it's good that we're talking about this because this actually gels in to a certain extent with the Greys.
Yeah, like you mentioned the other day, you mentioned the last episode, Greys is not belongs
They're
to
not
the
a
Federation.
member of the Federation.
Okay.
So we take this kind of exo-conscious thinking. First of all, one of the functions of the Federation would be the simple universal law of respect. Now let's say, for example, we have stellar engineering, we have terraforming of planets. That means taking a dead planet, bringing it back to life. Or let's go a step further. Forget petrol and oil, Dr. Lamb. We are not interested in what happens on this planet. But we have to understand that type 1, type 2 civilizations out there in space are interested in the energy of stars. Now, under their technology, a group of extraterrestrials might take one star and build a Dyson sphere around it, trapping all the energy in the star, and they might want to dam up that energy and use it. But that affects the other planets and other systems nearby. Okay? So it's very much like in Egypt, up the Nile. If you build a dam, block the water, by Sudan, you have to take care of the people down the Nile. The Galactic Federation is just common sense that what one would do, one would take into account all the other species in the area, the other sentient life forms, and take into account the effect of blocking off the energy or the light of that star. So that would be one reason why you'd want to be part of the Galactic Federation, because you would have a much better understanding of the spirituality and the laws of creation, the natural laws, the balances of space, which is just natural, not the human elite-induced, forced, terrible suppression, government, police that goes on this planet. It's completely different. You want to be harmonious. The Galactic Federation is really dealing with harmonious aspects of life. Now, one of the things that's also very interesting is that what we don't know yet, but in time to come, the kinds of activities we'll be doing with energy and maybe time travel is creating something called electrogravity, which is a pollution. It pollutes. It's actually a pollution. We don't understand it yet, but it exists. And the Federation would make sure that everybody sort of, followed the line and monitored it and made sure that we could all go about our interdimensional travel or whatever it is, Einstein Rosen bridges from one part of space to the other without dirting space. Now, on the other side of the coin, these groups that don't belong to the Galactic Federation, it's quite disturbing because when we do look at it from our human point of view, we see that mainly these groups that are really involved in, let's just say, abductions, that are involved in maybe unethical genetic engineering. I say unethical, but we'll come to that later when we address the document in question. One group taking the humans, the other group benefiting from it, and all the time telling the people, this is good for your spiritual development, etc. We may be the turkey on the table. That's what it might look like to some. But we have some other commentary to discuss about that. So, Galactic Federation, we need a certain kind of consciousness. Now, this dovetails in, as I say, with the Greys. Because our thinking at the moment is linear. I was discussing with Manuel Lameroy in South Africa, Exopolitics South Africa.
Yeah.
We're talking about the humans are trained in our institutions to think linear. One side of the brain.
We were trained to think linear.
We are trained to think linear. Only one side of the brain. Or the other side of the brain. But we're never taught to think with both sides of the brain. To have a greater balanced aspect of what we're perceiving.
Can you?
We all can. Musicians can. Artists can. We have a greater perception of thought. And, pure love incorporates both sides of the brain. Creativity incorporates both sides of the brain.
But
Manuel was explaining to me, and you can read quite a bit into this into his exopedia.org, which Tong Tong last time put up the website address.
No,
for example,
I put it up.
Oh, you put it up. Okay, very good. Okay.
Because you said .com.
Right.
But that is not
it was
right.
.org.
It's supposed to be
Right.
.org.
You're quite right. So if we take 1 foot long of linear time, and we join one to the other. That's basically how we think.
Yeah.
As you become more advanced, i.e. more towards the way the extraterrestrials are, you can imagine a sine wave like that. So in the same 1 foot, you have more length, right? So we'll try to show you on here. I don't know if we can.
Yeah,
Or maybe we can post it up.
Yeah, I will
we can
post
it up. So we basically have 2 foot in the one space. So that mind can process 2 feet of information in the same amount of space. But when we start to talk about higher evolved beings, even some of these beings in the crash retrievals have been found to have not left and right side of the brain, but 4 lobes. 4 sides of the brain.
4 parts.
4 parts. So we can only hardly imagine what kind of brain computing power some of these Federation members or non-members have in terms of computing their reality.
Yeah.
We are still relating everything to the laws of the earth, of this planet, of the energy, and of the police, and of the government, and of the Masons. And we're still thinking like that, and that's where Dr. Lam is coming from. But we go further, and we just imagine a different form of thinking, something called topological thinking. Okay, where you have 1 foot of space, but imagine a coil. Imagine a coil. So you could have a mile or 10 miles of coil in the 1 foot.
Yeah. They're all rolling down.
And the ups and downs of that coil could be at different points in space-time. And they're accessing this information. So, Dr. Lam, it's very hard for you to understand about why somebody would go into the Galactic Federation, because if anything, if they went in, it would be for a creative reason, as opposed to a being suppressed and being held like we are down here as prisoners, slave taxpayers. So it's a very good question, and I really hope that my answers have assisted you.
Okay. All right. 呢個真係有字幕啦，照睇啦嚇，應該冇問題嘅。好啦，咁啊，另外有啲問題佢哋有人問過啦嚇，有一位我要抄翻個名先，有一位叫做Suki， 係咪叫 Suki 啊？唔係 Suki， 等陣先嚇。係啦，有個係啦 Suki 啊 ，Suki 佢問過個問題咧，佢就話：OK，if the Nordics aliens really want to help us to change to a higher level, and why don't they just simply go to the secret society and help and change those people who give us the world will?
Okay, let's first of all put right. A Nordic is a human-looking extraterrestrial.
It's just a name.
It's a name. Nordic in English means somebody who's from Scandinavia, Norway, a blonde. Some of these beings look like that. Some of them may not be really biological. They may be android, robotic. Some of them may indeed be real.
So whatever we
this
look,
this is the cosmic ecology, the cosmic cultures that exist. So why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? Well, some of these species are quite happy that we're in the situation we're in. Okay, it just some of them don't care either way. There is definitely an abduction program going on, and according to the Greys that we get into, the Greys do the abducting, and the Nordics benefit by being there. Okay, so why don't they change? Well, look, you have to understand that is only a small part of the cosmic ecology. The greater cosmic ecology is really a great positive future, golden, higher abilities to process, magnificent out there. Science, I mean, religion to the extraterrestrials is all about science and spirituality. Here it's about enslavement. So there are beings out there, and you experienced them last week in our CE5.
Oh, the CE5 workshop.
I know you want to ask me a question about that.
That was so crazy. I will explain.
These highly evolved, ethical, if you like, or let's say, who have our interests at heart. These beings want us to break free and do it ourselves, because if you don't do it yourself, then you're under somebody else's sovereignty. Somebody else is controlling you because you're too dumb to do it yourself. And as humans, unfortunately, many of us are either dumb, either greedy, or don't want to break from the worldview, don't want to move off their chair while they're sitting watching the TV and drinking the beer, eating popcorn.
Yeah.
The end of the day, if you want to break free, we can break free. But the only way we can break free is if we do it together as a species. These ethical beings are all the time coming to us, advising us, having face-to-face contact. They're downloading. They have somnivision. That's when you're sleeping. You get these dreams, and all these faces come into your mind. They get crop circles. They're pumping us with realization. We have the power. We are powerful beings. We're spiritual beings. We are actually immortal. We will never die. We can do it ourselves, and that's the reason.
Okay. So they actually want us to experience ourselves.
They want us to experience, learn, put that information into the Akashic records so it's there to be drawn on, and eventually the collective consciousness comes together and we all wake up.
But it seems like
I'm trying to wake you up.
some of the aliens, we heard the story from a lot of testimony that some of the aliens actually contacted the government.
Yes.
They wanted to change the government, but they couldn't. So they decided to give it up and change and make contact to the citizens themselves, like us.
Correct. That's exactly what Stan Ho was teaching at the last CE5 workshop.
Oh, I'm gonna have to say about the CE5. I cannot explain it. 嗰個 CE5 當時即係其實有好多人喺現場，因為所有有份去個 tour 嘅人都會去呢個 CE5 workshop 啦。因為我哋都要即係做咗個 workshop，你先至知即係去到美國做乜嘢噶嘛，係咪？唔係你去到坐喺度咩？係咪？咁所以我哋即係早前都啱啱上兩個禮拜就做咗一個 workshop 咁樣。個 workshop 最有趣嘅咧就係佢帶咗兩部一個好細嘅一個雷達。咁嗰個雷達係咩咧？就係嗰啲what's the radar? What's the purpose?
It's a radar, speed radar to pick up any electromagnetic interference.
係啦，即係嗰兩個雷達咧，其實就係啲人裝喺汽車嗰度嗰啲驚俾人影快相嗰啲雷達咧。咁但係嗰個雷達就可以即係可以接收到一啲嘅即係電磁場。咁嗰個雷達原本個構造就係佢 fit 咗好似係我冇記錯好似係30幾種全世界常用嘅嗰啲速度槍啊，佢哋發放出嚟嗰個信號啊。咁所以佢一收到個信號，佢知道你俾人 check 緊啦。即係當然就係話你係俾人 check 緊嘅時候咧，佢先至發信號俾你嘅。咁所以如果你嗰陣時先收有已經太遲啦嚇。咁但係嗰兩個雷達咧係新買翻嚟嘅，係我親自幫佢開嗰個盒嘅，因為我話喂嗰個盒好核突，即係我覺得個盒好肉酸啊，不如唔好俾個盒人睇啦。我親自喺嗰個 workshop 嘅幾分鐘之前咧，我幫佢拆開個雷達，幫佢裝嚿電，跟住擺咗兩個雷達，就喺個地方度擺咗兩個雷達出嚟啦。咁我哋問咗有啲問題咧，係個雷達咧係會有一啲係會自己響，即係會響嘅。咁但係我哋喺個室內嘅地方，我哋冇理由會有嗰啲即係嗰啲即係汽車嗰啲影響到啊，嗰啲即係嗰啲 speed gun 冇理由影響到我哋。咁而有趣嘅咧就係佢個雷達咧係會有陣時響一個，有陣時咧係響另外一個，即係兩個雷達其實擺埋好近嘅，但係有啲乜嘢可以影響到一個而影響唔到另一個雷達咧，係我都解釋唔到嘅。Okay, I just explain a little.
Okay,
I cannot really explain why the radar can alarm on one
radar
side
goes
and
off and the other one doesn't, and every time I spoke on certain things, the one radar gave 2 peeps for yes to confirm what we were saying, and you saw how everybody in the room was affected mentally. They were dizzy after that intense period of whatever manifested in that room transdimensionally. Yes, it was a very powerful experience, and we did that for a reason.
You experienced this kind of things before?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, this is what I warned you of, and this is why we had the workshop. Because we'll be going through these processes again, but the next time we do it, we will be actually reacting with the craft. And that's what we are going to be doing in the States. So I had to prepare you guys for this process.
Okay. By the time they look at this program, then we are already working on the CE5 or something like that.
Correct.
Okay, now let's go back to the report.
Okay, but before we go to the report, which is basically about the greys, we still suffer from the problem of the word grey. Meaning grey. Well, we have so many different kinds
types of greys.
You have short greys.
Whatever with a big eyes and big head, like a pier, upside down pier.
Correct.
With a big eyes, we call them gray.
Correct.
Right? But that could be a tall grave, like Charles Hall.
Correct.
And it could be a short grave, like what we saw in Roswell, wreckage.
Right.
So, what do you want to say about
Well,
it?
I was just going to say, if you look at, again, Exopedia, Manuel has done a great breakdown of the different types of greys. I mean, we just take a few, for example. Some of the tall-nosed greys are 6 to 9 feet. They have a distinct nose.
6 to 9 feet.
Yes, and you have a photo of one which I've sent you, which you can put up, which is called the Eben. You can have a look at that.
With what nose?
It has a nose, a proper nose. Okay, and it's supposedly come from the Orion constellation.
Right.
Betelgeuse is the place. Okay. Then we have tall greys, which are 6 to 7 feet.
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, you saw the film, eh?
I was thinking about the film.
Okay, they also have large heads, slit-like mouth. But this, interestingly enough, for some of the tall greys, the 6 to 7 feet greys, some of them apparently have reproductive organs. Okay, they have male and female sex organs. So it appears.
But if they are not a mammal, why do they have the need to have sex like this?
Well, I think all life to reproduce, maybe naturally, have to have a sex organs. Now, I'm not saying that in 1,000 years' time we will necessarily use our sex organs ourselves.
Are you saying?
For
Are you saying they are
we may
not? You're not saying. Are you saying they are not reproduced by clone? They actually.
There are so many different greys. Which one are we talking about? There's thousands of different types of greys. We can't even tell the difference. Like an American,
he looks
at a Chinese, he looks at a Korean and a Japanese.
No. But you mentioned some of the type have a sex organ.
Some of the types of these greys have sex organs. From what we understand, the 6 to 7 footers do. But there are many different kinds of 6 to 7 foot greys.
Okay.
I haven't pulled all the trousers down to have a look to see which is which. But I'm just giving you the possibility.
Okay.
Of what can be and what is in this great diversity of species.
Okay, you want me to check yours? All right, go ahead.
All right, but what? And these are very commonly seen during abductions. Now, I just wanted to bring up a very important case in point here. Neil Freer.
Neil Freer.
He wrote the book Godspell and Sapiens Rising. I mean, he's an expert on the Anunnaki, and we will be discussing in future episodes in depth the Anunnaki. Now, Neil Freer, when he was young, was on the balcony of his house in the USA, and all the family was sitting there, when all of a sudden, everybody was like talking, froze.
Freeze like that?
Like this.
What, totally freeze
totally
everybody?
Frozen in space-time.
Oh.
And he encountered these beings. Short greys carried him, took him onto the spacecraft, communicated with him telepathically. The tall greys, these guys, 6 to 7 feet, who we see in this document have reproductive organs, right? They were like the management, he calls them, the people in charge. And when he asked them who or what they were, those 6 to 7 foot tall greys turned around to him and said, "We are android."
Oh, they're android. They're not
Those
real creatures.
particular ones were android. They were not biological. They were android. And this became very clear to Neil Freer. He talks about this so often. It made a very, very powerful impact on him, because it made Neil Freer realize about the future, the scientific future, about what can be done. But later on, he saw behind them was a human on the same craft. So there we go. Classical story. Your small grey abducts you. Your big grey looks like the doctor in charge, whatever.
And then I have human on the back.
And then there's a human.
Those human are actually the human-looking alien.
Human-looking alien.
Like what we mentioned last episode.
Right.
About the episode before.
But Neil Freer, in his mind, remembers interacting with a human on board the craft, And he remembered him saying something like he's an archie or anarchy or something like that. And it only came to pass later that Neil Freer realized what he was dealing with was an Anunnaki, a human, humanoid human, extraterrestrial. Okay? And that Anunnaki basically explained to Neil Freer that he wanted Neil Freer to somehow bring in the Anunnaki culture, actually bring in the awareness of the Anunnaki and perhaps our heritage, where we come from, to this planet. In return, they would watch out for him. Neil Freer today is 83 years old, and I know a few certain problems that he had, and they looked after him.
Okay.
And he survived it, okay? So that's me just giving you some, if you like, conflict about hearing one thing about a 7-foot grey, but then there's other types.
OK， 我哋休息一陣，we heading a break， 會休息一陣，轉頭翻嚟繼續 MJ13，繼續睇呢個小灰人嘅報告。好啦，翻嚟第二節嘅 MJ13啦，咁啊繼續有阿 Neil 喺度啦，咁啊講埋嗰個 Greys 嘅 report 啊。You haven't finished all the types of Greys yet.
No, I haven't finished them because the next load of Greys in the Exopedia are the standard Greys. Those are the ones we hear the most about. They seem to be the 3-foot guys that are doing the abductions. They carry these, floating the people out. But we also hear of the 2-foot Greys that do the same thing. So again, you have these different kinds of Greys, 2 foot, 3 foot. We try to describe them by size, but even these standard Greys, it's very confusing because you have white, you have grey, you have orange, you have some of them are blue. There are many, many different colors. So we have a real confusion of trying to, classify. Put them into groups is very difficult. There seems to be overlaps, and it's very, very hard to understand.
But they all basically looks like the same.
They look basically the same, but I mean, it's a difference if the eyes are up or slightly down or wrap around or bulbous, sticking out when they're quite thick, some not. Some have quite small eyes. Really, really different to say. I mean, like Dr. Michael Wolff, with the ET that he worked with, Coulter. You can see in the picture of his book, Catches of Heaven, basically a marshmallow kind of guy, big bulbous head, but small eyes, small little nose, mouth. They're all different, and some of them, in fact, have different types of hands. Some have claws, some have webbing in between, some have short hands, the joints move differently to ours, some have opposing thumbs. It's very, very difficult to say. But, in general, those kind of Greys, generally speaking, sort of come from Zeta, the Zeta system, Zeta reticular system, and those are basically humanoids. But the ones that come from Draco or Orion system, we call those, in some cases, they're more sauroid, like scales, like slightly. I don't want to use the word reptilian, but unfortunately, the UFO culture has developed these words. Because we don't have exo-consciousness yet to put the real characters and the mental processing into perspective. We're only able as humans to point fingers and say, you're a sauroid, you're a this, you're a that, like with humans. You're a Jew, you're an Arab, you're a Muslim, it's all finger pointing. And unfortunately, without exo-consciousness and this kind of training, we're not able to actually bring out the depth of character, the real issues that define these different exophenotypes, these different subsets of species. This is very, very important. And then we talk about the short Greys. Well, I think these are the people we're going to be discussing about in the document. These beings, I mean, they are basically also very small, 3 foot. They're said to be extremely aggressive. Aggressive, yes.
In the sense?
Well, they quite thorough in their processing. I wouldn't say handling of abductees. They're processing. They're quite thorough, they're quite firm, perhaps sometimes don't answer. They have the agenda, they go with it, they do it.
They will have to do. They will have to finish what they want to do.
Yes, the interesting thing about them is we were talking in terms of the non-linear thinking with the coil, the topological kind of mental processing. You have to understand as well with these greys, they have what's called a hive mind.
I don't understand.
They're all sharing the same mind.
Ah.
Now you're sitting here talking to me, you've got your own thinking, I've got my thinking, but they
everybody
also
is
have
sharing.
a shared thinking. And they can process extremely fast. So while they're actually doing something here, they actually know what's going on over there. Okay? And they're accessing higher dimensions of thought as well, which we can't do.
Right.
This just depends on how, maybe it's technology assisted consciousness, we don't know.
Are those those type of aliens, those type of greys that we saw on YouTube that and KGB, a guy's named Ivan 55, he released a video of a KGB video which we saw a whole bunch of aliens, greys, walking to places and they look at each other. It seems like they're communicating. And then also the other one is a full view from the bottom, from his feet, and pan up the camera to his face, and you can see his blinking eyes and like a little smiling face and then touching his hand, doing something.
Yeah, the only problem with that video is when we analyze the video forensically, that means, really in detail, we start to see certain font they were using in the typing did not apply to that period of time. Certain sound did not apply to that period of time. Now look, it may well be CGI, or it may, one chance, and I don't know how many, may be real, but somebody's beefed it up. I mean, my personal opinion is it's a nice video to watch to give you a very good idea of how things may be. It's not really relevant whether something is real or not real, because we know the phenomena is real.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so anyway, we'll go into this this document, having tried to give you, with the help of Exopedia, some kind of background as to the variety, diversity of species of aliens, and of course we've given you some idea about the way they process mentally. But another very important point is that people like Jacques Vallée, an eminent scientist, John Mack, you already know, Strieber, all these people have said you've got to take into account something else, the nature of reality, which I've explained to you before as well, about what we really are, projecting things out from the mind, different dimensions. Fairies, ghosts, elves come from this different realm. Some people are actually suggesting that some of these greys, being interdimensional, come from these realms. They come from inner space. You see lots of these old myths and stories about people being kidnapped by the fairies, disappearing like an abduction, and then coming back with great stories and writing books.
It's basically like an alien abduction story.
Yes. So this is just another interesting kind of aspect to put in it. Now we also, as we've said before, that some of these life forms are maybe not biological. You may look at them, you might cut them, and they might bleed, but they may be constructed, manufactured.
You're saying something like a biomechanical.
Something like that.
Or maybe they were created not by the natural reproduction process.
Right, but
maybe by machine or maybe something like that.
But the important point to realize across the whole spectrum of all this with extraterrestrial or whatever appears to be a life form is that we look at two different aspects. One is the aspect of a being that is connected to source. Now I'm very careful with the word I'm using. Connected to source. I don't want to use the word soul because people start to think religion, theology. I don't want to talk about religion and theology. A lot of rubbish. Okay?
A lot of rubbish.
Because we're still primitive, so we have this crutch. But we have to understand that there is a source, a creative power, consciousness, source. If something is created from source, comes from source, moves through non-locality, and materializes into the atomic world and is surrounded by atoms, then that thing produces another being, and it's all connected to source. But here's the point. Your android or your biological robot is not connected to source. It's run by a program.
I don't. You should explain a little bit more.
It is a construct. It is a machine. It may be made of metal.
Yeah.
Not really. But it may be made of silicon. It may be made of highly sophisticated nanomaterials, microscopic little engines, if you like. It's best to explain it to you, that work together to produce and grow this organism that you would talk to, it would relate to you, and it knows more than you, and it taps into higher frequencies that you can't know about because it's electronic in some sense. Yet you look at it, it's fully biological, like perhaps some of the Nordics that are so perfect, but they are not connected to source. In other words, when they expire, when their mechanism is finished, they die, they cease to exist anymore. Whereas something connected to source with the soul, when the atomic structure dies, you're still left with a consciousness. So you see the difference between
some
the two.
of the grays may be biomechanical.
Correct.
Some of them may be living creatures.
Correct. And this is what we have to consider, because I'm trying to approach the subject of the grays, which is, it's a horrendous subject to give exopolitical commentary on, because it's so complicated. I mean, I've experienced personal contact with grays.
Yes.
And I do not understand how they can tell me something at the age of 6, age of 9 years old, and I understand it today. It was like through time. I mean, it's all got to do with this non-linear topological thinking.
Right.
And influence. Okay, so anyway, we've got up to that stage, so we can actually move into now discussing the document where we're dealing with these creatures who are grays, small grays, supposedly, by all accounts, relative to our stature, if you like, aggressive.
Yeah.
So the interview, in fact, in this document is like, is there a confederation? Are you acting together in the confederation? And the being actually turns around and says,
the
answers, the grey, small grey says, because he's asked the question, do you cooperate? Is there a federation?
No, hang on. Who come up with this report?
I think we don't need to discuss too much about who, where, or what.
You cannot say or what?
We just concentrate that there's this document. We use the document as the core issue to our discussion, but we add the exopolitical commentary to either knock it over or to reinforce it.
Yeah, but still, people need to know what is how reliable is this report.
Oh, it's very reliable.
Yeah, I mean, last time you said you cannot mention about the name because you have to protect this guy.
Yeah.
Who give the whistleblower who give away the information.
Yeah.
But what about this one right here?
Well, same story. I'm prepared to give commentary on it because I'm not exposing it as a public document because nobody can see the document, but I am using it to stimulate exopolitical debate on a sentient species and to discuss and to help people understand the aspects of exo-consciousness and how, like Dr. Lam, how do we discuss things if we don't understand the fundamentals or the fundamental differences between us? So that's why.
I know you got into some trouble since the last episode of the Nordics comes out.
I got into some, but certain
it's nothing
things.
Serious?
No, not too serious, because I didn't really cross the line too much. So, but anyway, my job is to bring it out. So
okay.
I don't.
再提多次啊！今日呢個報告都一樣，唔好用英文打返文字出嚟。同樣亦都唔想俾即係其他嘅外國人知道我哋討論緊呢樣嘢。當然喺個節目入邊講英文咧，佢哋都要聽到噶啦。但係起碼 文字上高佢哋容易去揾到出嚟，咁就咁即係我哋個節目入邊講咧就少啲機會。Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so how do they cooperate? Is there confederation?
Yeah, one of the questions in the report is how do they cooperate? Is there a confederation that is acting together?
Correct.
Yeah. What is...
We don't need to act together. We are not a member of the Federation. The Nordics are not. And this is very chilling because you can see what the answer is. We were here on planet Earth before you.
You mean the Grey said that?
The Grey said that. We were here before you. Who do you think you are? We are here before you. We are collecting perhaps resources. You guys turn up, however you turned up, that's another matter. And now you ask so many questions, the way you guys behave, and to us, this is what they're thinking, you humans are a resource too. We use you. We tolerate you. And the earth is for anybody, it's for everybody. This is their opinion. This is the answer the Greys are giving.
So
the earth is for
everyone
everybody.
can come in.
Everybody can come here because they say we share everything. All right, now we listen to this, and as a species listening to this program, we have to absorb what these beings are saying and hold it and bear it in mind as we go along and see what sense we can make of it. Now, what this reminds me of, and you should know this, it reminds me of the Jim Sparks case.
Oh, yeah.
Where those Greys,
Yeah. Coming from the wall.
they were coming through the wall, they were coming inside, they were telling Jim Sparks how they come to the planets. You know, you have all the cows, you know, if you poison your field, you just take these cows and move them somewhere else.
Yeah.
The same thing, you poison the earth, we will collect all the species, and you guys can fry, boy, and we'll go and terraform to another planet and continue. Maybe
Yeah.
take some of you again and continue over there. Look after the planet. That's because basically we're here, we're not looking after the planet.
No, we're not.
So this is a very chilling thing. We were here before you. Now, humans don't like to hear this.
No, because we want to think that we are the most successful or privileged species in this world.
Correct. So this is an important point to bear in mind, the Sparks case, the Jim Sparks case. And then the question is asked again, are you a mechanical species?
Yeah.
Oh, no. They don't like that. You know,
They don't like that in a
no,
sense.
they say, no, we are biological, but we are different in our biology. Our biology is different to yours. So just because we are different doesn't mean to say we are some kind of a robot. But there's some interesting exopolitical commentary on this too. There's a theory, and I would just say this, that a certain author wrote a book, but this author did a complete thesis from beginning to end to explain everything about the Greys, their agenda, and why the planet is like it is with the different races. And this book, this author basically says that in his opinion, the only explanation he can come up with is that the Greys, okay, he uses the word Greys, maybe he means these Greys
Yeah.
that are doing the abductions. He's asserting that they're all biological robots, programs. But they don't know that they are biological. They think, to some extent, that they don't know that they are android, because the program doesn't let them think so. This is what the book says. So what they're doing is they're abducting people to try to somehow give themselves a soul connection to source. Okay.
You mean
And-
they were products. They were products, but they don't know that.
They just have this instinct that they need to get this kind of soul attachment. So what they try to do is piggyback onto the human soul.
How do they do that?
Well, how do they do that? Because what they actually think, if you imagine a bottle and you fill the bottle up with little balls, marbles,
Yeah.
those are the atoms.
Yeah.
If you pour water into it and say that's source or consciousness, the consciousness gets in between the atoms.
Yeah.
Okay? So they, in their program, this is according to his thesis. Okay, it's not according to my thesis or what I understand by it. I'm just giving you a commentary. That they use human DNA and they connect it to the atoms. And the atoms are then, if you like, immersed in the soul. So they think, they're satisfying this, it's like an addiction. They're satisfying themselves that this connection to source is bathing our DNA mixed with their biological, if you like, androidal DNA, artificial DNA. And this is the obsession they have, and they think this will give them some kind of mortality. The program is like that. But, you know, I mean, one can give all kinds of explanations as to what's going on, and I'm sure it's a little bit of everything. But I just thought I would bring this point up to try to give some sense to the abductions, because quite frankly, all we know about abductions is that they take the DNA and they have this breeding program. This we know. But we don't know really for what.
Okay.
Okay? We don't really know to any depth for what.
Okay, one of the questions that are you part of the plant? As some humans said that your tissue contains
chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll, what does that mean?
Chlorophyll, the green
plants
yeah,
I know
collects sunlight using photosynthesis,
photosynthesis, yes.
to create energy. And this is why they say they can be bioluminescence at night. They can glow.
Ah, right.
Because they've got this in the side.
So that's another reason why they don't need to eat. You never see the greys eat.
They say that, but we also understand again by some other exopolitical commentary that they do need stuff like boron and actually some of the fossil fuels, if you like, and they rub it into their skin. And apparently some abductees have had a very, very strong smell of ammonia. Apparently some of these guys stink quite bad. It's rubbed into their skin, and there's all sorts of chemical reactions, and that's actually how they sustain themselves. So this is in the document.
So they say they are not plants.
They say they're not plants, and they need some kind of nutrients, but not all the nutrients exist on the planet, they're saying.
Right.
Not all the nutrients exist on the planet. Now, they only work at night. They cannot take the sunshine.
They cannot take the sunshine.
They cannot take the sunshine. But the Nordics can. And the Nordics can mix with humans and not get found out.
It seems like right. Because we only heard about people saw the greys at night.
Only at night.
We never see them saw that in the daytime.
They say that actually heat and light can damage them. So sunlight and the temperature can damage them. So they need a particular kind of, from what we understand from the abductees, is that sometimes it's quite damp, quite moist, quite warm where they are. But who are they? Which grey are we talking about? Sauroid type? Smooth type? We don't know.
Some of the type may not scare like
we actually have to look at it that way. I mean, like Dr. Michael Wolff's grey, for example, turned up when Philippe de Misezera, the French intelligence agent, was in hospital after his heart attack. The E.T. Coulter turned up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Made everybody else sleep, turned up to visit him, had his photograph taken in Dr. Michael Wolff's room. We have a picture of that photograph.
Yeah, I will show it up. I will show it up in the video. Yeah.
So there again, now we sort of move on to the other questions where they were asking the greys about orbs. So we know from the Nordics were saying that these things just sort of carry information, no intelligence as such. They just sort of move around, passing information. They might carry a face for identity of the person who's to receive it or who sent it, etc. But now the greys are saying that there are also different kinds of orbs. Now this was not mentioned in the previous document,
right?
That there are different kinds of orbs. So these are messengers and probes.
It's just the same thing like the Nordics said.
No, the Nordics, but these are actually the previous ones had no purpose, no intention.
No, but remember, Nordics said that the orbs are also the messenger.
The messenger, yeah, you program it and you send it and it goes. But they're saying that these actually have a consciousness. They have an awareness.
Oh, they said they have the consciousness.
They have an awareness, right? So the first group, the Nordics, were not admitting to this type.
Right.
So it seems that they only tell you what they want to tell you. in the species. And you know, I can't say that maybe, you know, every member of the Galactic Federation would tell you everything. Maybe not, because maybe not ready for it. Maybe now we still don't understand what an orb is. But according to these greys, you know, they turn up when you want them, and they're not aggressive. They can materialize, dematerialize, carry information and energy, and are useful. So they will come and go when asked. So here we have a different explanation, which I'm quite surprised to hear, because this is a complete different explanation of additional orbs. So we're looking at additional orbs, perhaps as varied as there are different races of extraterrestrials. Everything's varied.
Yeah, because we don't know what that is.
Another question to the grey. Are these species detrimental to humans?
Yeah, everybody wants to know that.
Are there any species of extraterrestrial that are detrimental? My understanding of detrimental is dangerous or regressive. Are there any extraterrestrials that are dangerous to us? And the answer quite simply was
no.
Yes.
Oh, they said yes.
Was yes.
What about it?
But which ones? They wouldn't tell. They wouldn't tell.
Yeah, some of them, definitely some of them may be harmful, dangerous to human. That's why we find that body, the line in is it Mexico or Puerto Rico?
Brazil. No,
Brazil.
I personally believe that's military.
Oh, you personally believe that's military. Okay.
I don't think these extraterrestrials have to do that. But the next question...
Why did they have to use the word this, not instead of dangerous?
Detrimental, because it's less degrees of usefulness, maybe. It's a softer way of putting it. So the question immediately fired afterwards was, well, you know, I mean, aren't abductions detrimental to humans? And they say, no, they're beneficial. Well, of course, it's in their interest.
Yeah.
That's their agenda. They have a reason. They like in the Sparks case, yes, we will use a lower species as long as we are responsible and look after them. So you can have a cow in a field, you can take its milk, as long as you look after it.
Right.
You can use a human, let's say, for example, like the tall whites, they take those jailed humans from the Brazilian jails, killers, murderers.
Yeah.
They got close to them, they went and they took them off to another planet.
So they can start it over with respect.
No, they were using them as slaves. But they were, supposedly we hear they were okay, because they're
using them as slaves.
They were using them as labor, sure. For whatever reason, I don't know what labor they want. But they put them up there and they are looked after, they're given food, they're a little bit more freedom. Because there's no society they can go and do anything wrong and harm people. So in their mindset, again, you know, ethnocentrism. We can't judge other civilizations by our own standards.
Right.
So this is a different standard. These are imperatives, you know. What a waste. Maybe they say, what a waste, putting this life in a jail. Yeah. Humans don't know. You can take these people and use them for something else.
Exactly.
Possible.
But that's the way they want to do it.
Possible.
Yeah.
So the Greys are now saying the abductions are beneficial. Can they be very traumatic to humans?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. But it's for research, they say, and it's for human growth. Now, we can take some very interesting commentary.
Yeah.
Because personally, from some of the abductions that I've heard about, my experience early on were traumatic, but later on, it was fantastic. Okay?
Yeah,
and the same for one of my kids.
It's quite close to what the others. There are a lot of contactees or abductees we know, like Jim Sparks, like Travis Welton, like who else?
Yeah, there's plenty of people out there.
Plenty of them. They originally they feel really scared, and they think this is a bad thing. But then later on they realize their mind had been changing.
So what Mary Rodwell was saying.
Yeah, Mary Rodwell.
In one of her commentaries, she's a researcher. She's 3,000 cases to her name.
Yeah.
She's investigated.
An alien abduction.
Yeah, she's had people who have been traumatized, totally shocked by abduction, but once she sits them down, she regresses them, takes them to the experience, and they actually relive it and relive the experience. Because when you're hypnotized, you can bring everything back, and you may be a little bit detached, so you're not in it 100%.
Right.
So you can look at what happened, and you can reassess in your mind what it was. You're thrown onto a table. You've got all these eyes around you, and you're put back. You can't move. Well, it's frightening.
Yeah,
but when you regressed and you put back and you see that they're looking and they're checking for radiation levels in your system, and they're checking your lungs, the pollution, and they're checking all aspects of your physicality, maybe to make sure that the human container, the physical body, can adjust to the fast changing rate of decay and pollution that we have to live in this planet.
Okay.
So this could be one of the points. It's a very important point to understand.
Okay, we are heading to a break, and we will come back for more of this Gray's report. Okay, we come back. 我轉頭翻嚟繼續 MJ13。OK， 我哋翻嚟第三節啊，第三節嘅 MJ13啊。We're coming back to the third section of MJ13. We still have Neil Gould here. Okay, I have a question that they mentioned the skin have what is that substance again?
Chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll. Yeah.
Grays, you mean?
Grays, yes. They have that substance, chlorophyll, on the skins, and that is a main substance that creates photosynthesis for the plants.
Yes.
Which is good for the plants. They're giving them the energy and all that important substance for them to keep on living for the plants.
Correct.
But why again in this report they're saying the aliens, the Greys, that have this substance, they're so afraid of the sun?
I think the giveaway there, if we try to analyze that, is the Greys mentioned that they are also sometimes bioluminescent. That means you can shine at night. Some kind of a glow.
Yeah.
So I would speculate and say that the chlorophyll that they are talking about is a genetically altered chlorophyll in terms of their own genetic manipulation through their own evolution, is not necessarily to absorb direct sunlight, because different suns in different places have different intensities and different spectrums. So therefore, they could be damaged. My speculation is that they also do mention a lot about not only living in craft, but also living in caves and going underground. That their chlorophyll type substance, if you like, is really sensitive to maybe some of these spectrums of light. Let's say, for example, maybe there are intolerant to certain spectrums, but ultraviolet may be very beneficial for them, and they absorb this ultraviolet, and they can use the ultraviolet in this kind of chlorophyll to create maybe certain kinds of nourishment within their circulatory system. So this is the interpretation that I would put on this in the document, because you will find through much of the literature that you read, and including experiences that I've had with them myself, is that they don't answer questions. It's very hard to get a question answered. You're normally answered years down the line, by actions or by certain synchronicities, etc. But very, very difficult. Their non-linear minds are all over the place. We can't even imagine. They're taking as important yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and what will be, what might be, what chance it is to be, against what you're thinking is maybe this, maybe that, tomorrow, yesterday. It's completely different.
Okay. So sometimes that is the reason why sometimes they're asking questions, but it seems like they are not answering.
Sometimes it's like that. They may just not see the importance of it. I mean,
only human beings saw this. Some of the points are important, but for them could be something useless.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's exactly it. So I think another point here is, for example, is it for research or for human growth? They're asking for the abductions. They ask the Greys. And is it true that hybrids are a combination of human, Grey, and Nordic? And the Greys say yes.
Just say yes.
They just say yes. They don't go into it. They don't want to give you any information. But let me again move your mind, because I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are looking at the negative aspects of this program in terms of analyzing the Greys. Let's just for a second pull away from the abduction and from all the terrible things that we are frightening ourselves with.
Yeah.
And let's get on to the case of Susan Hansen in New Zealand. She is actually a client of Mary Rodwell.
Susan
Hansen.
Susan Hansen.
Yes.
Okay, you may have to explain a little bit more about what's the job of Mary Rodwell do.
Mary Rodwell is a she basically regresses people, hypnotizes people, regresses them. She's a therapist. She's a UFO researcher. She's an incredible lady. You can watch my interview with her on YouTube, Mary Rodwell.
She have been
amazing.
She have been interviewed like 600, 400,
maybe 3,000 cases by now.
3,000 cases by now.
Maybe.
They are all abduction cases.
I interviewed Mary maybe 4 years ago, and
yes.
it was really 2,000 cases, so it must have gone way beyond that.
Ah, right.
So she really knows her stuff, and she's dealing with kids of 4 or 5 years old that are talking about being on the craft to their parents, saying, I want to go home. This kind of stuff. But Mary also is dealing with cases where we are talking quite clearly. We're talking about Greys.
Yeah.
And the actual unfolding of events of these Greys are absolutely fantastic. It's all about education and growth.
A growth or what?
Well, I'll give you another interesting case with Susan Hansen's case brought to Mary Rodwell. Mary regressed Susan Hansen.
Yeah.
Now, when Susan Hansen was 8 years old, she was on the craft with a Grey.
Right.
The Grey brought in a ball of light and was able to somehow, some flow of communication with this ball of light, a feeling about it. And later on, when Susan Hansen got older and she became pregnant, she was brought up again to the craft, and the Greys put this ball of light into the child.
How?
Because the ball of light was the soul, was the connection to source, was the consciousness, was this thing I'm talking to you about.
Yeah. Okay.
Connection to source.
Yeah.
And
source in the
source in the sense, moving away from theology, religion, God, source, creation, real, pure creation,
right?
Creative source consciousness. So these Greys, maybe at this higher level, maybe these are extremely ethical, I don't know, but they are actually charged, if you like, given the duty of, if you like, or trusted, if you like, or of pure goodness, spiritual goodness, have this ability to interact with soul at soul level. We're talking soul. And to take charge of the soul and put it into Susan Hansen's child.
Put it into her tummy?
Her baby. Into her tummy.
How do they know? How does she know they putting the soul into the body?
Because she was there. She was taken onto the craft while it was being done. And she talks about it. You can watch her interviews.
Yeah.
So I move you away from the negative to the fascinating, incredible, spiritual, beyond religious and religion, these acts that take place in our reality, or maybe just outside of our reality, but we're part of it.
Yeah.
And put into the child. She knew the child before she had the child.
Who knew the child before?
She knew the child before she had the child, because at 8 years old, she already met the soul of her child. So now we are looking at the Greys outside of this paper, but we may not be looking at the same Grey. This is an important point.
I don't understand that.
We're looking at a different species, maybe.
Okay.
Because these greys that we're looking at in this document seem to be obsessed between the Nordics, between the greys, and between some reptilians. They seem to be genetically manipulating, physically, for whatever reason, taking. But on the other hand, these other greys that interacted with Susan Hansen are actually showing her what is going on a highly, highly ethical, if you like, or magnificent or spiritual, just that we know, showing us that we know that we can see here, look, we are immortal. We've come from source. We physically, our atomic structure dies, but the consciousness is still there.
Yeah.
To me, that is what that teaches.
Okay.
And I think that's damn fantastic. And she said that they used to play mind games with the playmates. She said she was on board the craft. Some of the playmates were transgenic. They were hybrids.
Yeah.
Already hybrids. So these greys as well, also creating hybrids. So if they're also creating hybrids, there must be some aspect of the use of DNA. Where does that DNA come from? It comes from us.
Yeah.
So we're back again into a loop, into the abduction. So it's a conflict. It's a contradiction again. 1 minute it's good, 1 minute it's bad. 1 minute it's one thing, 1 minute it's another thing. It seems we can't get away with the greys from this aspect of genetics.
Yeah.
Moving our containers forward. So this is just a very interesting thing. Now, another lady told her that one of the experiences she had with the Zetas, the greys, she could see she was taken out of her body.
Yeah.
She saw her body in the corner of the craft.
On the corner of the craft.
Yeah, just sort of, in the corner, at the end of the craft. It was inanimate. It was basically not moving because she was out of the body and she was put into a Zeta container.
Put into a Zeta
container, into a Zeta, into a grey.
So they can actually grab. I would say
in this case, in this kind of grey, in this situation,
they can grab her consciousness
down, maybe upload it and then download it into the Zeta.
Oh, unbelievable!
Well, I'll back this up with something even more incredible.
I'm not saying this is fake. I'm saying that I cannot understand and I cannot imagine what that feels.
So
when you wake up in the middle of the night and you become an alien.
How can Dr. Joe Lamb possibly ask questions? He's quite right what he does. He's asking. But at our level of understanding, to answer questions about the Federation, we've got to get through this. You understand the great gap between the cosmic community and ourselves. But this, she was saying that a human body was sort of hanging up as an unanimated suit. And she went back and forth from it as a ball of light into the Zeta body. Now, why do I say that I can back this up? If you recall, there's the case of Simon Parkes.
Simon
Parkes. In the UK, he was sort of in government, if you like.
Yeah, little
counselor, and he was actually basically, if you like, abducted consensually by these mantis creatures, these mantoids.
Yeah, the
insectoids that took him up and really inspired him in a huge interaction. But at some point as well, he says very clearly, they took my consciousness out of my physical human body and put me into a mantoid body.
Oh, he happens.
So let me phrase it a different way. Took my atomic structure off, if you like, source consciousness, this water I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Took the atomic structure off.
Yeah.
Put it over there in the corner.
Yeah, leave it
took
inside.
My consciousness and downloaded it into a different atomic structure. So from the human atomic structure
they just leave
into
it behind,
the mantoid atomic structure. And the same here. Out of the human atomic structure into the Zeta atomic structure. So why are they doing this? Why is one aspect of it abduction and scary, and yet you have this incredible revelations of taking consciousness and exposing it to a different atomic structure, different body, and seeing the world through those eyes. Why?
Because they can see clearly.
You perhaps, from what I see and what I understand by this, is you're given for a while this expanded consciousness.
Oh, you mean their IQ can pump up?
Yeah.
like
You're-
the
space bubble.
Space bubble.
You're given this expanded consciousness. You have the mechanisms of the brain, the non-linear,
and you can deal with a lot of
non-linear
questions.
aspect, the non-linear, the linear mind, the wave,
Yeah.
non-linear, the coil, and suddenly they're into this topological thinking, where they're experiencing, processing at an extremely fast rate, and also sharing the minds of the others.
I know what you
Why?
mean. The education.
Because I think on two levels, for any form of life, you have a physical evolution,
Yeah.
okay, part of it which is we're taught Darwinism, part of it in the micro level is true, but on the macro level it is not true because we are obviously interfered with,
Yeah.
tweaked by these higher entities. But on the conscious level,
What about it?
you have to be consciously upgraded.
Consciously
Consciousness has
upgraded.
to be upgraded to move forward.
What's the purpose of doing it?
Consciousness upgrades so you can move towards joining the higher species, getting into galactic federations, becoming equipped to understand what you have to deal with,
Okay.
so that you can process. Because our brains can do a lot of these things,
Yeah,
but
but
we are sitting here controlled by institutions and a false world, and it's suppressing our spiritual growth. People say to me, "What do you mean we can our evolution, our spiritual evolution, can speed up if we can get rid of the shadow government?" What do you mean? This is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. Cut the crap education that they're giving us and the false rubbish and the bullshits about peak oil and who cares and printing dollars that don't exist. I mean, what are you supposed to think all day long? I've got no time to think about this kind of stuff because I've got to pay the bills, right?
yeah, yep.
And this is one of the problems. So that's why we have this kind of conscious evolution.
Okay.
All right, so you can see what the next question is they're talking about. Can alien technology harm humans? Yes, propulsion systems can harm humans. Now, where do you remember
the
that?
propulsion system can help Travis Walton
Yeah,
because it's been, hit by the energy when the flying saucer tried to fly away.
right.
When they heat up the engine, and then the energy just bangs him back to the trees and faint.
Correct. And we will be spending time together with Travis Walton.
Yeah,
By the time everybody's
tour.
watching this, we'll be with Travis Walton at the abduction zone.
But the
So-
question is, how does he find out this story?
Well, this is the story conclusion he came to years later, because all
Yeah.
the time he believed he was abducted.
Yeah,
But then he's just recently come to the conclusion that the propulsion system, they didn't see him, and then boom, he walked into the beam and got knocked over. And what we see here are the Greys in this interview capitalizing on the story. In other words, endorsing the story. In other words, saying this will be feasible to humans. But I don't buy it.
why?
Okay, we're in the year 2013. Okay? I get into my car. I want to go backwards.
Yeah,
If there's something behind me, what do I hear? Beep, 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 beep,
yeah,
beep, beep.
the radar with the sound. Yeah, it's only-
And we're, I mean, what are we?
but
We're
then it's
ants.
only for your car, and it's not for mine.
Not for yours, but we have the technology.
Yeah, okay.
These guys are, God knows how many years more advanced. Are you telling me, because their ships are conscious,
Yeah,
their ships have a consciousness,
and they connect to the ship.
and they connect to the ship. Their brains have another level as well. And that was taught, that kind of conscious connection to the ship.
They
was with
should be-
Jim Sparks. I'm jumping all over the place, sorry, but it's important because Jim Sparks, when he was on board the craft, was taught thought activation technology.
Yeah,
He was given a cube, and he had to do with his mind. He had to turn the cube, knock the cube over.
Yeah,
Same
yeah.
with the triangle, knock it over, move it. Right?
yeah. He was learning how to use
How
his
to connect
mind.
thought to activation.
Yes.
Colonel Corso
Yeah.
was talking about the Roswell incident, where the actual beings, they couldn't work out the propulsion system of the ship. It was because the beings, perhaps again Greys, perhaps biological androids, perhaps, were tuned into the propulsion or navigation system or operational system of the craft,
Yeah.
using some sort of symbiotic synchronicity between the brain impulses at a higher level,
Yeah.
and that they could work the craft.
So you're saying that in
So
this
I'm
report
saying-
he is not telling the truth?
I'm saying, Tong Tong was asking me, how, if people meet aliens, do they know whether they're good or bad? I first of all corrected him and said, well, how do you know if a human's good or bad? But the point he was trying to make, how do you discern the truth?
I don't believe he asked such a stupid question.
It's a good question, actually.
Yeah, it's
because
a good
it
question,
led
actually. I'm just kidding.
to something else. It
Okay.
led to something else. So I think in this document, I think these greys are being manipulative. Now, you know Dr. Michael Sala. He has basically 4 basic categories of extraterrestrial that's engaging us. One is the intruder.
Yeah,
One is the manipulator.
yeah,
Those two on the regressive side.
right.
Then he has the watcher
Yeah.
and the helper.
Helper, yeah, helper is those people, those
The ambassadors.
beings coming over and help you.
That's right. So
Yeah.
the
Great.
these particular greys to me are intruders because they're abducting,
Yeah.
and they're manipulators because
They
they're
try
not
to
telling the
control
truth.
us. They're not telling the truth.
They're actually allowing a status quo to exist on this planet where nothing changes, so and they can come and take DNA, and if we don't dirty or foul up the DNA
Yeah.
and poison it, as opposed to being a watcher or a helper who's giving us symbols and explanations and perhaps reducing radiation levels and like the friendship case coming here and the Space Brothers and educating us, giving us spiritual knowledge on how to go about things.
Yeah.
So now, as I say, I don't buy that. I find this nonsense. I think they're just telling lies. Then we come on to other questions. Can
Okay.
other races prevent abductions?
Yes, I
But-
guess.
Yes, but they say they can, but they don't. And because they
What
say
do-
they say
yes.
it's beneficial to them.
Ah, you just quite matched to the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Nordic was actually is not their business, but you abduct these people anyway.
You do the dirty work. Maybe they're androids. Maybe they're android chasing the tails. Maybe the
Yeah.
Nordics know that. In this one in that book I was telling you about, maybe they think these guys are just spinning in circles. The android's gone wrong, trying to connect their DNA to source. So if they're picking up the humans and they're programmed to do
Yeah.
it efficiently, and they can go through walls, and they've got all these other abilities, then maybe let them go and collect the humans, and we'll just sort of, share the resource.
Yeah. It
Maybe,
seems like
maybe not.
Seems like you already have the animal lying right in front of
It's
you.
there.
Right?
I might as well.
I just go there and take a look, and then do some little research, and then go.
That's right.
Okay.
So
So actually, when they answering is the other race can stop the abduction, but they just rather not to do it. Just let it happen because it's only
they're benefiting.
yeah.
And what the Greys are trying to do in this particular document is make out in this interview, we share everything. Everything's shared. So if we've got the human, we share them.
And then the questions
It
up,
doesn't suit us, does it?
up to here, and then the questions ask, "Are you talking about the Nordics?" And the Grey said, "Yes."
Because the question was asked about Nordic. There was no question saying about reptilian or other Grey or other life form.
Yeah.
We don't know who else is involved. But I can assure you, there's all aspects of beings, non-Federation beings,
Right.
doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But there wouldn't be anything wrong. Let's say, for example, something from the Galactic Federation going into Fukushima,
Yeah.
abducting people, working on them, and then putting them back because maybe they worry about the
The
radiation.
radiation.
Maybe there's that kind of worry. Maybe there's that
It's
kind of
just-
worry.
Probably they just kidnap them, abduct them, and then do a little test, or maybe do a little help,
Yeah,
and then release them.
yeah. But I'm not so sure of the motivations of these small greys. I'm not sure.
There's something I must share. I was on the plane yesterday to a little short trip, somewhere outside of Hong Kong, and I was sitting in the plane and watched the movie, the latest movie of Star Trek, Into the Darkness, I guess. I don't know whether you watch it. At the first part of the movie, that the whole crew, going to another planet with the really low level species of creatures. They looks like human with the whole body plain in white, and then they're not human. Okay, they're still like a very old, people. The what can I say? The native creature in the planet, which is they're having a volcanoes about to blow up and killing the whole system, whole planet. So the Star Trek members go there and actually helping them to keep the species, but they cannot show up themselves.
Right.
It was a little like hidden message in that movie that they're telling in probably on the Federation up there. They want to help us, but they don't want to give us a direct help. They want to help us
ourselves. Help us to help ourselves.
Yes, something like that. And they cannot. How can I say that? It cannot interfere.
Non-intervention. This is well known in the Federation that there's no direct intervention.
No direct intervention.
No direct intervention. No direct intervention.
And everybody say the same thing. Even the other contactees, the other abductees, even the source from Miss Ma, from my story, that ladies who've been abducted by alien, they all saying the same thing. They cannot directly do something to the planet, to the species.
That's right. Well, how are we going to develop this exo-consciousness in our brains, which is quite capable, if everybody else is doing the plan and implementing the plan?
Yeah.
As I said to you in the last program, we have to eventually be able to have the technology to leave this planet in case it gets hit by a galactic superwave or a comet.
Yeah.
We have to be able to evacuate the whole world, planet, to another planet and terraform it.
Yeah.
If somebody else has to come along, clean up our mess, do everything for us, evacuate us, what's the point? Eventually we'll all be our own boss. We'll all be able to get in our own craft and leave. This is the way it has to go, like with them. So this is an important point.
Okay.
Right, so they also mentioned, questions are also asked about when they do some of these abductions, if there's resistance.
Resistance?
If they abduct a human and the human wakes up, they can't necessarily control the human.
Yeah.
There's a kind of, if you like, a resistance, maybe...
Like James Bond's got the pistol ready.
Well, that was inside his home, but I mean, when he was on the craft, he was kicking and shoving, and same with Travis when he was on the table. It was very, very hard, They want you to punch the extraterrestrial near him.
Yeah.
So what they do is they actually they ask the Nordics who are on the craft to help with this kind of thing, to sort of help calm them down.
Yeah.
Sometimes just the very look of a human-looking face relaxes them, or who knows, maybe these greys have no way to completely paralyze. Maybe partially. Maybe they just can do amnesia. And I go back to Suzanne
Hanson.
Taylor's story.
Who's Susan Taylor?
Susan. Sorry, I'm talking about Susan Taylor, not Susan Hanson.
Okay. So the name.
Let's just use the word Susan. I won't get confused.
So the name we mentioned earlier is wrong. Susan Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, basically, what she's actually postulating or asserting is that before you come into an atomic body, you're at soul.
Yeah.
Or the Greys are saying this anyway, that you are actually giving consent. You're allowing yourself before you're born to be abducted. You're giving permission.
I don't really understand that.
No, well, I don't either. It's not that I don't understand.
I
can see it as a fabulous. I can see it as a fabulous excuse coming from the Greys, and I've heard a lot of very, very highly qualified people, doctors and very highly qualified people who are into the UFO field, agreeing and saying, "Oh, yeah, you got abducted because it's so level you agreed to it beforehand."
Well, this is just like the same thing like the New Agers said. That you got cancer because you allowed yourself to get cancer,
For me, common sense, and it's anthropocentric, of course.
Yeah.
common sense says to me that you are given an atomic body, and common sense says to me that your neurological reactions, your instincts are to protect that body.
Yeah.
If I sit here and that fly comes here, I will go like that.
Yeah.
If I sit here and this cup falls on me, I'll go like that.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting here and a robber walks in and he wants to rob me and whatever, he wants to shoot me, I will defend myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a basic function
To
that
stop
we
that.
have to protect our atomic structure.
So we can just say it.
We have to protect it. If something comes and takes us,
Yeah. Yeah.
For me-
what can we do then?
so therefore I don't see the point that we agreed this beforehand.
I-
Because it goes against the physical side that we have to protect our atomic structure.
Okay, remember that Miss Ma sent you an email and asking you about how can I stop being abducted, and you said you can directly tell them so.
You can directly tell them, yeah.
And
In some cases this has happened.
nobody really tell them to stop abducting me. So does it mean it's just like what the other scientists, the other study, the other experts said, you're allowing them to do it?
They say you're allowing, but the point is, sometimes it's happened that they've stopped. But the question still remains. Are they still doing it, but you don't know?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're being abducted because you
You
know
go
it.
this way, they can go that way. You go an inch this way, they can go a mile that way. They
Ah,
have
right,
as Dr.
right,
David
right.
Jacobs says very, very clearly, and it's obvious for all to see. These greys have a neurological advantage over humans.
I believe so. Yes.
That means they control your reality. They
Yeah, just
control
like,
your reality.
Yeah, like what you mentioned the other episode, that all around us is a hologram.
There's a hologram, so they
So
are apparently able to operate
Yeah,
in a fourth dimension.
yeah. So actually, maybe I'm talking to a Grace, and they project
You don't know.
a face like Neil Gould, talking to me and
You
make me
don't know.
release.
Sorry, not the fourth dimension. Maybe a fourth density.
Right.
Because it's like, for example, you sit here, and we are vibrating at this particular frequency.
Yeah.
When you have a fan that's going round and round and round,
Right.
you can't see the propeller anymore. It starts to get blurred.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's at a different density, different frequency. So they are vibrating at a different speed.
And you
so,
cannot
so
see it.
Some sensitive humans can sense them. That's why you walk into rooms sometimes and you feel that cold shiver on your back.
Yeah.
You sense something in the room because you can't see it, but maybe you're sensing it. They can actually see you. So these greys operate
Yeah.
sometimes outside of this density.
So that means you cannot see them.
You
Even
cannot see them. Plus, they have these ELFs, extremely low frequencies.
EMF,
ELF.
ELF.
ELF, extremely low frequencies, maybe around 3 to 6 hertz. Extremely low frequencies. They can get these brain waves, they can come out of their head and they can go into your head. They go through walls, and I don't know, they somehow or t'other they have a control on these brain waves, and they can use them to manipulate your reality. I mean, I know, I've had it. You come in and you can't move. I know. This is not just me. This is millions of people.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Dr. John Mack, you just look, his peer group doing these interdisciplinary studies. All these people.
I met two ladies this morning before you come here. I met two ladies this morning, and they're basically saying the same thing.
You cannot move.
They
They
cannot
have a
move.
neurological advantage.
Yeah,
And then they can make you see things that aren't there.
yeah, yeah. You
They
can
put
still
slim
see.
screens. And this document does refer to this to a point.
Yeah,
But anyway, they also talk about that they can't do what the Nordics do about bilocating from their bodies and picking up a new body somewhere else. They can't. They have to go in these craft.
okay. Okay, we're taking a break, and then we will come back for the last section of MJ13. Okay, we're back to the last section of MJ13, and obviously we both are really tired because now you really have to do what you have to do. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, we're preparing for our our trip, and none of us have had any sleep. So we're very tired. But first of all, Suzanne, I have to apologize to you for calling you Suzanne Taylor, because this guy makes me work.
It got nothing to do with me, okay? And then
it's Suzanne Hansen, not
Suzanne Hansen.
Sorry, Suzanne. I owe you one.
Yeah, and then he told me that I actually know her, and I make a mistake on her name.
I know.
And then spend another 5 minutes searching your name, spelling of your name.
There's a Susan Taylor who does this UFO art.
Yeah. You mix it up with somebody else. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
we can carry on with that. They got a lot of information.
It's too much information.
But how come nobody really asking about a secret agreement with U.S. governments, and how come nobody really asking about?
Yeah, I suppose there again, which greys? I mean, one of the points they're talking about here, which greys are... who's responsible for carrying out the abductions, and they say here that it's the large greys and the Nordics as well. So there's large greys, so you don't know. It could have been the large greys that had the meeting.
Large greys in the means tall greys?
Yeah, the tall greys with the Eisenhower government at the time.
Yeah.
We're not sure this Creator Treaties it was called, whether it was 1954 or 1964, but there's a whole lot of supposed dates.
But it also mentioned about Nordic to make it.
Well, apparently it all started off. The first contact was made by more or less human-looking, but then some people talk about some kind of Syrian ET, which is human-looking with a longer kind of a nose. Mm-hmm. There's, unfortunately, it happened so long ago, and this truth embargo is really causing everybody a problem because over time stories distort. But the fact is, there was contact on 2 occasions with the government at that time. But the main key point, coming back to these Greys and Nordics, it's not in here, this document about it. So we have to assume that, maybe a larger Grey species had the interaction at, I think it was Holloman Air Force Base in the States.
Right.
Then they were talking about implants. Can humans...
the little implants in or the abductee's body.
We spoke about that under the Nordic program.
Yeah.
How perhaps these implants are accessing higher morphogenic fields that we can't actually see or sense, but the Greys maybe have some way of linking some kind of different density or dimensional field with our human bodies. Maybe there's some kind of connection, or maybe have some sort of resonance. But they're saying it's pointless removing them because they'll just be replaced again.
It's the same thing like the Nordics said.
No, well, the Nordics sort of said, you can take them out, whatever, but
but we will put it back.
We'll put it back. So there again, did we agree this before we became atomic structures? I question that personally. It's only my opinion because I'm a human. So anyway,
you're sure you're a human?
I'm 90% of the time sure. Okay, so question asked, how do they travel with or without vehicles? They say yes, they travel with vehicles large and small. How are they manufactured? Well, this was a very interesting point, how they came up with this answer. Do they have plant-like qualities? I don't know why that question was asked. Because I think because they were linking the fact that the craft are conscious. Maybe consciousness in a sense that we don't understand, and in terms of extremely advanced technical abilities, but still not attached to source. And they were saying, well, these craft are really grown, just like you get ice and you start to freeze the ice and it sort of seems to spread out like tentacles and like spider's web and grows. In this case, they say it's like a crystal.
What? Who says the craft will grow?
These Greys, they say they grow the craft like a crystal. So that means if they're growing the craft using a crystal, they must embed everything they need in that solid structure using nanotechnology, extreme technologies, artificial intelligence. It all has to be almost like a DNA, if you like a program that will actually guide the expansion and reproduction or growth of these crystals into the templated format that will ultimately end up with. That is, in other words, disc shapes, smooth edges, round, for traversing, space, and perhaps it's the perfect shape for manipulating space-time.
I start to believe in this report right now. It was because if this is a fake enough, they could have faked in something more convincing. I mean, it is very difficult to convince people who don't believe in UFO.
Yeah, I agree.
That the craft can grow like a plant. That
by them not telling you everything is making you think. So that's why the whole thing about good alien and bad alien. We think the guy's good if he tells us everything.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not a good idea, because then we just sit and suck it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's a good idea that they tell you something,
To keep
and
you
you've got to
thinking.
work out the rest. So I think this is very good. But
Right.
I'm still cautious.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, that's supposed to be the attitude we're supposed to have.
That's right. So again, they say they cannot bilocate. They use craft. An interesting question was asked about the hybrids. Why is this hybridization program? Why? And how long can the hybrids stay on Earth? Here you have this mixture of species. I mean, it appears now it's a mixture of Nordic, it's a mixture of human, and it's a mixture of whatever DNA the Greys are using, whether it's their own DNA or if they're biological, it's maybe the tall Greys' DNA. We don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's alien DNA. And what they're saying is that all the hybrids have varying amounts of grey Nordic and human DNA.
Yeah.
But some hybrids that have more human DNA, they can stay for longer times on the planet. And ones that have less cannot. They've got to go away from Earth. But we also know that we've had some problems with the breeding program with these independent hybrid activity, the last stage of the breeding program, according to Dr. David Jacobs. After they hybridize them, they breed them, abduct, hybridize, breed, and then they have this independent hybrid activity where these hybrids in accelerated growth come to Earth and they cause a lot of problems. Sometimes they freak out and apparently they don't survive. This is what we've heard. And we've also heard from Jim Sparks that a lot of humans are made in varying degrees of this breeding program, alien human, and they are sent elsewhere. Some of them are sent to Earth for an experience and sent elsewhere. So there's some kind of a tie-up. And then we get back to the indigo children.
Indigo child.
These gifted human children with, perhaps a bit more multi-dimensional abilities. Maybe both sides of the brain are used. Extremely artistic. You see that young girl, I can't remember her name, does these fantastic paintings. They have extreme amounts of empathy and understanding for others. It really, the way a lot of us should be and we are not. But they say this is natural. This occurs naturally. It's not because of any breeding program, but they are very interested in them because they're very interested in their genetics. So
Our DNA.
Their DNA. They take these qualities out and they use them.
So when during this report, when the people who asking the questions about the hybrid, he's actually talking about a hybrid in a tangible base, like a real physical child that had been proved maybe he has a mother as a human mother, but the other half may be an unknown species.
Yeah, that's what a hybrid is. And you have varying amounts of the characteristics of the alien and varying amounts of the characteristics of the human. And they manipulate that depending if they want the hybrid to be more human or more alien. They just manipulate the DNA.
And then they
breed and concentrate the breed as they go down, like we said in the last program.
Right.
Like with pets.
Okay. Yeah, carry on.
All right. So anyway, there's various commentary here about why and etc. Why the abduction, but they're not going to get to the answer why they're abducting. It's just not coming out. I've been through the documents. They're just basically saying, don't worry, we don't need to destroy you. You will continue living forever. We need your resources. We share resources. There's certain things they won't answer questions about the Nordics and have Nordics ever become hybrids, and there's certain stuff they stay away from. They're just trying to tell you as much or as little as they want you to know, and they don't want to give you too much data.
Then why there is a report then? If they don't want to share with you information?
Well, I'm only treating the report as as, if you like, a document to bring up topics that we can either support with other exopolitical cases which are brought in, or knock it out, or look at it as whether we feel it's detrimental to us, or whether we feel we're just not advanced enough to understand it. Maybe we have too much stress on our own importance.
Yeah.
They look at all the biota on this planet, and they've got to imagine you're an extraterrestrial. You look at this planet. You see beautiful, pristine lakes. You see beautiful fish. You see whales. You see dolphins. You see mountains, snow, everything in balance.
Yeah.
Then you see these humans come along, spill an oil tanker all over the sea.
Yeah.
You see them drilling through a pristine lake because they heard there's another one underneath it. They want to get the bacteria out and see what gives there. Then they start to see plastic bags everywhere. Then they start to see people being poisoned with radioactivity. But we, in the middle of this mess, still regard ourselves as important. Now, why would an extraterrestrial species, let's say, who perhaps was responsible for the creation of us, or had incredible use for the biota on the planet, who would they judge as being more important?
Was the first part.
They wouldn't necessarily think we are a problem. So you do one of two things. You either get rid of the problem, or you change the genetic makeup of that problem to try to get it to be something better.
Yeah.
But at all costs, I think the planet is more important. The whole ecosystem is more important.
To them.
I would think so, because they're using the resources.
Right.
Okay? Now, they also admit that some abductions, they are accidents, that humans break bones.
Now they finally said that.
They finally said that. It happens. We try not to do this,
Yeah.
but it happens.
Yeah. But they don't have the technology to fix the bone.
Well, now it's a very, very, very good point. That's exactly like I was saying with the sensor at the back of the car. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
You must have the technology.
Yeah.
If you can genetically engineer,
Yeah, if I
you
have...
can accelerate.
Exactly.
So the question is, why do they break? Are there some protocols exist between the different races? Maybe one race is careless, breaks your bone. The other one's making an excuse.
If they can use a little thing, like a little implant stuck into your nose without you knowing it,
Yeah.
they should have a technology to fix the broken bones.
Well, maybe they're just not telling you that they do fix it.
Yeah.
They say we try not to do this, but who knows? I mean, again, they're getting you to think.
Yeah.
Now, we know they have the technology, so we have to assume they broke your bone, they fixed it.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean they have to fix it.
They can take out your fetus when you're pregnant, the baby,
Yeah.
and they can
They can fix it.
genetically engineer it and put it back again.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
But they can also take it out, send you back, and you're more or less okay.
And you
I mean,
may
there's
not
a lot of
even
things
know
they
it.
can do. They can accelerate these embryos in these bottles, these jars, and grow them quite quickly. There's technology.
But yeah, that's the reason why they... I don't understand. That's the reason why I'm doubt. They cannot fix the
Well,
broken bones.
now I see here, this is a question I really like because it reminds me of Chinese.
Yeah, what about it?
Is it true that there's a hierarchy? In other words, hooded, robed, reptilians, Nordics, large greys, small greys. In other words, you have reptilians with hoods, no hoods, big, small, greys.
Yeah.
They're asking, is there a pecking order? Is any one more in charge than the other?
I don't understand that.
Is anybody
Yeah.
in charge?
In charge of what?
If you've got all these different species on the ship, okay, is any one race or group in charge?
In charge.
In charge of the others?
What's the report say?
Well, the Greys are saying no. And why I say it reminds me of the Chinese is because whenever I go to China and you sit around that big table having lunch with the factory, you've got the factory boss, you've got the factory manager, you've got the supervisor, you've got the engineer, you've got the assistant. And when that lazy Susie table turns around and the food goes round, you can tell who's in charge by who takes the first piece of food off the plate, right?
Yes.
And that's what you see. But when they sit around the table, they're all acting like they're all good friends and everything, and like it's nothing because you're the customer. Well, I just apply that human anthropocentric view to the Greys, and I look at them and I think, well, is somebody in charge? Somebody must want the DNA raw material, human DNA, in pristine condition first. Somebody wants it second, or is a hooded reptilian versus a non-hooded reptilian more militant, if you like, more imperial?
Yeah.
What are the attitudes between them? They don't want to talk about this. The answer is simple. We work together. There's no hierarchy. Hierarchy is a human concept, just like I brought it up.
Yeah.
You see, exactly what I did. They're saying that's a human thinking. Nobody's in charge. We are not like that. We are not the aliens. Humans are the aliens. Not them. Why they bring it up like this, I don't know. And they're saying that some Greys and some Nordics collect the humans and prepare them for procedures. The humans are then given to the Greys and others for their use while they're with us. So it's like nobody's in charge, everybody's sharing. This is the way these societies work. They work by sharing. Some of the minds of the Greys are linked. Evidently, the Nordics are not linked to the Greys, and the reptilians are not linked either. But we understand from hierarchies and certain mannerisms and actions we've seen on the ships is that, in fact, some of the reptilians seem to be controlling the Greys. The Nordics say, no, that some of the reptilians are just driving the craft. That, to me, shows already a level that they're involved in the piloting of the craft, but they're not involved in this aspect of daily affairs of aliens. So
you're basically talking about like a driver driving the balls to the work.
Yeah. So I think this is some kind of answer thrown out to us. We got to sort it out. We are studying galactic diplomacy. We are listening to the testimony of abductees. We've had abductees come back with full memory. Like Sparks, we've had abductees come back with partial memory. We even understand my labs, that the military are interfering and back engineering the abductees and giving a load of rubbish and distort. They know we know this. And they also know we're capable of undoing a lot of this.
Undoing
a lot of this stories put out by the military abduction people. Because they inject these people, make them see things, they have false life forms, all this kind of stuff. But I think we've got to the point already in exopolitics where we can almost we can tell if an abduction is military inspired. If it's a recycling of the abductee, if you like, we can tell.
I remember you mentioned the difference between alien abduction and military abduction, like the shape of the room or the shape of the area, if they are oval shape. But for military abduction, you may see the angles and you may see the
squares,
walls.
They're wearing coats.
And also you feel feeling scared
with the injections.
But if a military abduction, you feel they're actually trying to do something to hurt you. They scare you.
Right.
And make you really scared, but compared with the alien abduction is totally different.
And many of the MyLab abductees that come out of it are not 100%. They suffer from worse cases of post-traumatic stress disorder. Really become shaken up. Whereas I think with extraterrestrial contact, I think it's only a case of getting over the hump, getting over the first part, digesting it, and have some kind of growth in your consciousness that you put it into perspective. Whereas the human abduction, how are you going to put it into perspective? It destroys your mind, Well, they also talk about there's no conflict amongst each other. They work together, that resources are plentiful throughout the universe, which is what the Nordics have sort of said. Is there pressure for the Greys to join the Confederation? No. We join when we're ready, they say. Well, I don't know. I think people are entitled to go their own way, but the question is, we don't know at this stage about the ethics. We don't know which kind of Greys are members of the Federation, which aren't members of the Federation. If something is playing with a soul, it's hard to see that they're not ethical. It's very hard to see.
So basically, after we go through all these things, and this report is come up from a guy who interviewed a Greys, and we never know what kind of Greys, or like what the report said, there could be many different species of Greys.
First of all, you'll be talking to what's called a social memory complex.
Yeah.
You can't talk to one.
Yeah.
They're all connected.
I don't.
They cannot be interviewing one. You must be talking to a network, social memory complex.
Oh, yeah.
They're all plugged into one. So how does that work? What actually happens, any answer is done by consensus. They say this.
Yeah.
They all have to get to an answer they all agree on, and then they say it. But do we know whether that circuit of connection is below or a subset of another circuit with more higher evolved Greys?
If that happens, then they have to take orders.
They have to take orders. And that's probably exactly what we're seeing here.
Yeah. But for the top level of alien, they maybe have to take orders as well.
We don't know.
From the other higher level.
This is why this question was answered. Small Grey, bigger Grey, tall Grey.
Or maybe
then you get sort of reptilian.
Yeah.
And we seem to be dealing with this kind of group. People were asking the Greys, as you can see, are we going to get hit? Are we going to get hit by sort of some kind of shockwave, galactic superwave?
I don't understand why they suddenly asked such a question.
Well, because humans suffer from fear, and they were basically saying this, that, humans always think of the worst, always worry of the worst. And the Greys say, no, we just live as we are. Well, we always worry of the worst because we cannot go exosolar ourselves. We're not spacefaring yet. We are, maybe part of our humanity is.
Yeah.
There's the shadow government, but we're not. So this is a bit of a problem.
Okay.
Good. So let's see. Let's get on to the next bit.
Yep.
Now they're asking, are there any specific races that are influencing our leaders? Okay. Now this is a good question, because you were asking about when humanity had the meeting with the Greys.
Yeah, the answer should be yes.
Well, they say no. They're just saying everybody's equal. They might even abduct a leader. Everybody's abducted equally, treated equally, material taken equally, and that's it.
Is the Greys understand fully about the questions? He seems like he's answering something else.
You can see on there. But they answer all over the place.
Yeah.
You see the answers all disjointed. We don't need to read out those answers.
Okay.
But you can see. But what I do notice is there's no mention here of what Sparks was saying, and what plenty of other abductees are saying, is that they're interested in the lineage. When you take DNA, you want to see what your father, your grandfather, the great-grandfather, you follow the lineage all the way down.
Yeah.
There's no mention of lineage in here. There's just no mention of it at all with these small Greys. Remember, the small Greys are, inverted commas, the aggressive ones. That means they're being put into the regressive spectrum of extraterrestrials.
It seems like because they're doing the dirty work.
It seems to be like that. They're doing the dirty work. So they don't care about social groups, racial groups of humans, who's powerful, who's not. They are going for the characteristic. They're going for the genetics. But no mention of lineage here, as you can see. And they also say that we should not worry about whether we'll be here, Earth changes, whatever. These things do happen. We survive, we go on, and it's not something we should worry about.
Okay.
Another question was asked about religions and about life after death, because 96% of humanity believe life after death.
96%.
Yeah,
That many.
that many.
Ah.
Because it's incorporated in a lot of our bogus religion, our doctrine and everything. You're good, you go to heaven. So people believe there's life after death. If you're bad, you go to hell. Well, there must be a bad hell after death. They believe that.
Yeah.
What these Greys are saying is, because it's all one mind, if one container, body of a Grey ceases to function, okay, they don't say die, but they say if physical but cannot work, the mind is absorbed by the others, and it continues in that mind.
The mind will be
Because
absorbed.
the mind will not disappear. It's one mind.
Yeah.
So they say that the mind will just be absorbed by the others and the memories will live on. What that means, how it actually works, it's hard for us humans to understand.
I remember I read the report. I don't know whether the report is real or not. It's talking about the alien, that grays that been captured in the Roswell case, in Area 51, and it mentioned that they can simply pull out their consciousness from a body and put it into somebody else.
Well, they say that, but again, there's just so many grays, and we've discussed that already about downloading into other containers, etc., etc. Well, I think what we've done here is we've really covered most of the important points. You know, we know that there's no individuality. We know that everything works in consensus. The only stuff they produce are craft and medical instrumentation, they say. They don't talk about anything else. They don't care about writing. They don't care about music. It's absolutely meaningless to that kind of society.
Meaningless.
Totally meaningless. No need for it. They seem to be really working like a program, even though this might be a sentient life form.
So
it might have a connection
won't
to
be able
source.
to see this kind of creatures when we are in the States because we're using the music to communicate.
No, this is different. We're not. They can hear music. They can hear pulses. They can hear everything. They're aware of it, but they don't care about it. We sit here, hear music, la 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 la. We feel lovely. They want you to feel lovely. They can also come and zap you and make you feel lovely too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but they don't. It's not what they're about. They seem to be a hive mentality. It's a swarm of these ants, and they all have an agenda.
Yeah.
And you can't stop them. They're just in a swarm doing what they're doing. And they work really loyal to the total social memory complex, loyal to the total, the sum of the total, not as the individual. And this ethnocentrism, we can't compare our society where it's service to self. We only care about ourselves.
Yeah.
Some humans do care about others. But their whole being is all about being connected to the group, and it's for the preservation of the group. Whether it's robotic, whether it's android, whether this particular group is really connected to source is another matter. Very hard to determine. But we've actually covered most of the key points in this, and I think this really brings us to one last point, and that is what is quite interesting. They don't have a spoken language as such. Nor
They're using the telepath.
they're using telepathy. They really believe that words are an utterance. Words, you say something to somebody, you make a noise, vibration, it can be put over.
Yeah.
Many, many different languages, many, many different meanings.
Yeah. Even the same wording we use would be different meaning.
Will be different meaning.
So
they don't see how words can be real, final, or useful. Whereas with them, they will use symbols. They can encapsulate not only the word, I tell you something, you know, you're a nice guy. But the feeling of you're a nice guy, you don't get. Right. What the actual meaning of what I mean you're a nice guy and what he means you're a nice guy is two different feelings.
There too many fans said that you are a nice guy.
But this is a very important point because when they pass information, as I say, using this topological thinking, they are passing beyond linear communication. It's multidimensional.
One day I remember I listened to Coast to Coast AM. They interview with one of the ladies' names, Pierre or whatever. I don't remember her name. She is an expert who studied the crop circles. And the host keep on asking her about the crop circle, why they don't use words, why they just use the symbols. Because the answer is, she said, the words could be many different meanings.
Correct.
And it's not an accurate way to present what you have to present. But the symbol is different because you look at the symbol, you know the meanings right away. It pumps into your mind, your brain, and then you know what the meaning is. And that could be really accurate.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
But the wording is not accurate. That's just the same thing. Just the same thing this report said.
Same thing, crop circle. It is filled with meaning and it's specific. It's actually very specific and it's filled with feeling. There are people who are sensitive to it. There are people who can interpret it. There are people who actually can absorb a lot of these pictograms into their consciousness, but can't explain it yet because they're not multidimensional enough yet. It's not evolved enough yet.
So that's why we heard a lot of abduction case when they being abducted or they contact with the ETs, they got pictures popping in their head.
Yes, after our CE5.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention names, but some of the people, I had 4 people that were watching slideshows.
Yeah.
Of all these different beings.
Right after the workshop, and they start saying that.
When we got home, we were all feeling dizzy from that field effect that happened, and I had 4 emails and 1 phone call from a guy, and they were all telling me the same thing, that they'd been experiencing this in the past, but it was reoccurring. And I had to admit to them myself, I had the same thing to myself. All these different faces coming out of the colors. So there you go. This is the beginning of multidimensionality. This is what we were trying to do, to increase people's consciousness, their abilities, and that's what the workshop was for. And it worked. Yeah.
The workshop is amazing. I still, up to now, I've been working in this MJ13 and the other program earlier, and see so many unexplained things, and I still cannot explain how can they activate one radar without touching another one. And then the timing of the answer is so, how can I say it? It's so amazing. When you ask the questions, they answer right away.
But what was nice to see is Stan Ho was totally open to this.
Yeah.
And he just turned around and he said, Neil, they're answering you.
Yeah.
He just
I look at your face. Well, probably you don't know, because I look at your face when the first radar alarm, when we were doing the CE5 and passing through the location, the coordinate.
Yeah. The GPS coordinates.
Yeah, we look at the pictures, and when we're sending up the informations, and then suddenly that alarm and make noises like bloop, bloop, something like that.
They gave us a warning. You know what the warning was, don't you?
What's the warning?
They told us to move.
Okay.
You know about that. To move the location.
Oh yeah, because on the first one, we project the location of the hotel, and then it gives the feedback right away. But then in the second one, we project another location which is somewhere else.
Yeah.
We will go, and it's never answered.
Yeah.
It doesn't answer at all.
And it was changed.
And then it was changed because of the other reason. And then after that, and then we almost finished the workshop, and then we talk something else, something really quite casual. It's got nothing to do with the CE5, like something like wearing the clothes or something. And then after you said something, and then another radar alarm, and say something like, yes, he's right.
That's what Stan was saying.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's hard to explain. Only the people who actually been there that day.
But that's why I told you, I don't just want to do this kind of thing and get all these negative people involved because they spoil it for the other. We had a pure group of people. You saw they were all totally open to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt so inspired, and that's why it all came through so well. That's why it was a very successful workshop. And we had good contact, and you'll see in the States too.
Okay, when we record, I still haven't get on the plane yet. But you still, every day, every time when I talk to you, you said, you will see, you will see, you will see. You freaking out, that kind of things. Anyway, thanks again for coming here. We're both really tired, and we need to get on the plane really soon.
And sorry, Susan Hansen, one more time.
Yeah, by the time, will you see her when you go to the States?
No, Susan is in New Zealand.
Oh, New Zealand. Okay.
Mary in Australia.
Right. Okay, we will see each other again on in the location.
In the location, yes.
Yeah, and then we will start another amazing adventure. And we will come back again after we come back from the tour, and we will come back to MJ13, and we'll share with another report, which is another report from you still got quite a few reports to you.
Yes.
Okay.
We will continue the series of galactic diplomacy.
Yeah.
Help people understand how we knock out truth, how we discern, how we bring in witness testimony to verify, how we look at the scare tactics of people, misinformation, and so we can get to a flow where people have at least some tools to work with.
Okay. Right. 好啦，咁啊時間差唔多啦，咁已經去咗2個幾鐘頭啦，咁又要停一停啦。咁我哋呢一集完咗之後咧，就要唞一唞，可能要唞翻1-2個禮拜先會再有 MJ13。咁但係唔使擔心，我哋都會一路繼續延續落去啦嚇。咁但係我哋去旅行呢段時間，我就會揾個 video blog 俾大家睇。嗱，呢份報告咧就係另一份好厚嘅報告，我到而家都未睇晒。咁但係咧就我哋覺得呢啲報告應該係我哋逐啲去公開出去啦。我哋仲有其他嘅唔同嘅其他嘅物種嘅接觸報告都可以公開出去嘅。好啦，另外有啲朋友都會問啦，喂，上次你做嗰個洪師傅嗰集咧，即係降頭嗰集咧，你整嗰隻外星人有冇跌低啊？咁樣如果梗係冇啦，有跌低嘅我仲唔大鑼大鼓咁擺上 YouTube 俾大家睇，大家冧低咗咩？係咪？咁啊冇嘅，冇咁嘅事嘅。咁可能咧就唔係咁多人聽啦，或者係可能根本呢個實驗唔 work 啦。咁但係我哋試下會唔會喺嚟緊機會入邊再做多少少類似呢一類咁樣嘅實驗，試下可唔可以證實到，如果我有5000人或者有多啲嘅人一齊做呢個念力嘅測試，會唔會真係會喐到一啲實質嘅嘢呢？咁呢個喺留待將來再有機會再試啦。好啦，咁今日時間差唔多，我哋下個禮拜繼續 MJ13 say bye to them。Bye。Thank
you. Bye bye.